As of right now, the Lakers have 3 available roster spots. So here's how they should fill them out. They actually have potentially 4 roster slots, depending on Marc Gasol's situation, but we'll get to that later. So right off the bat, priority number 1 should be getting James Ennis. The Lakers could use some wing depth, especially when that player is a 3-and-D player. James Ennis has good size at 6'7", and last season he shot 43% on 2.5 attempts from 3-point range. Yeah, he would fit right into this team. I think he's the best player still available. He's 31, so he's not a young guy, but he's not in his late 30s like a lot of the other guys on the team. It's gonna be hard to ask guys like Trevor Ariza to guard the opposing team's best perimeter player every single night. So I think James Ennis can help with that. There's probably going to be a lot of load management this season, so having an extra wing like James Ennis will really help this team. For the next roster spot, although I doubt this is going to happen, but just for my personal preference and fandom, Svi Mykhailiuk. Yeah, let's continue with the theme of this offseason. Signing former Lakers. I'm sure I'm not the only Laker fan that would want this guy back. We loved him when he was a Laker, and we were all sad when he got traded. But other than the sentimental stuff, he's a very solid player. He only averaged 33% from 3, but he has one of the purest strokes that I have ever seen. And he has averaged over 40% from 3 in the past. So he could potentially go back to that, and we can always use more shooting. I think the Lakers have enough guards, so adding a 3-point shooting forward makes sense. But he can also play guard and handle the ball a little. And he's only 24 years old, so that could bring some balance to our old-ass front court. So that's who I would want. Another guy that fits that role and could add wing depth would be Wesley Matthews. Another 3-and-D guy, more of a guard, but he can defend bigger players. He wasn't that impressive last season, but having a guy that was already on the team could be helpful with all this roster turnover, having mostly new guys on the team. Having a little continuity could be beneficial, but still, I'd rather have Svi. With their last roster spot, it's been reported that the Lakers will leave it open. This allows them to remain flexible later in the season if there is a potential buyout or other type of transaction that needs to be made down the line. And they've done this the past couple of seasons, so more than likely they'll do it again this season. So if we're basing this off the 3 roster spots and leaving 1 open, James, Ennis, and Svi would be my choices. I think the Lakers actually are going to sign James Ennis. It just makes too much sense. Then again, that's what everyone was saying about Dwayne Dedmon last year. So we'll see. But when it comes to Svi, or even another wing, I think it's unlikely. Because based on the rumors and who the Lakers have been working out, it seems like they want another point guard. And that tells me that they are concerned with Kendrick Nunn's playmaking ability. I personally believe the Lakers have enough guards, but I understand why they would be concerned with Nunn. He does seem like a score-first guard, but then again, he was the starting point guard for a Heat team that made it to the finals. So that should tell you that he can lead an offense, much less a second unit. They also have THT, who played a little backup point guard last year, and Malik Monk, who can handle the ball a little. But nevertheless, the Lakers are still looking at guards. But the point guards they've been rumored to be interested or have worked out don't seem that impressive. Guys like Mike James, Tim Frazier, yeah, they don't really stand out. But I'd rather have them than Isaiah Thomas or Darren Collison, who've been out of the league for multiple years. I get it. I loved IT when he was on the Lakers. He was great to have around the young guys, but he isn't the best fit for this particular roster. And now everyone's interested in him, after he scored 81 points in the Pro-Am League. I'm not saying that's not impressive. 81 points is hard to score anywhere, but I guarantee you that he's not doing that in the NBA. If I was a betting man, I would bet my house. If I had a house and I was a betting man, I would bet my house that he's not scoring 81 points in the NBA. But anyway, if they have to get a point guard, my choice would be Teague. He's coming off a championship season with the Bucks. And yeah, he didn't do much in the finals, but he can still be a valuable player on the Lakers. He most likely would be an end-of-the-bench player again, but his veteran presence could balance out the young backcourt the Lakers have. Now, let's address the Marc Gasol situation. There's a rumor that Marc Gasol is not allowed to return. What that actually means, no one is sure. He could retire, he could be trying to play overseas, maybe for Barcelona, he could try to join another team in the NBA, but I think the most likely situation is that he's on the Lakers next season. He said himself after the Olympics that he intends to finish out his contract with the Lakers. And I think he's a man of his word. But if he does end up elsewhere, I think the best replacement for him would be DeMarcus Cousins. He offers a lot of what Marc Gasol does. He can stretch the floor, he can make plays for others, he can play on the low post. Plus, he's a former Laker, and he's familiar with LeBron and AD. So he would make the most sense. But other options could be Aaron Baines, Isaiah Hartenstein, or if you want to go small, Paul Millsap. But again, I think Boogie makes the most sense. So to recap, because it's a little confusing, if I were in charge, the Lakers would sign James Ennis and Svi while keeping the third spot open. What's most likely going to happen is the Lakers sign James Ennis plus a point guard. I prefer Teague, but more than likely it will be one of the point guards they've been linked to. So Isaiah Thomas, Darren Collison, Tim Frazier, or Mike James. And again, they leave the third roster spot open. And if Gasol leaves, they could replace him with Boogie. So a little bit of a complicated situation, but we're talking about end of the bench, end of the roster players that will unlikely see much playing time. They'll most likely not be in the rotation and will likely be backup garbage time players. But still, you want the most talented players that you can get. The Lakers have an old squad, and many of their key players will probably miss a few games. So having guys that can step up will really benefit this team.